Welcome to the Future of Customer Service podcast. I'm Andrea Paulton from Inbenta, and I will be interviewing customer support and service professionals to see what is currently working well, what issues they're trying to overcome, and the future success of customer service. Today we have Kevin Kvech from Amtrak. Thanks so much for being here. So Kevin, tell us exactly, what do you do for Amtrak?
So I have the basically the reservation and sales center of excellence, and so our site is located in Philadelphia, long-standing call center, if you will. I'm responsible for reservations. So customers call in not only for reservation, but for Amtrak guest rewards. So we have a rewards program. We don't service the credit card, but we have a partnership with with the lender in regard to the guest rewards program. We have other specialty queues as well. We do group sales, refunds, escalations, and then again, the sales component, which is really, we book a lot of revenue for, obviously for our travelers. So I have all that, back office, phones, email, chat, SMS, kind of all the typical channels that you might find.
So you got everything. And tell me, how long has Amtrak been around?
So I believe since '72, Amtrak was established and is funded by Congress. We are a quasi-government agency. So our funding comes from the government. This year, it's amazing because prior to COVID, this was the first year that Amtrak was going to turn a profit. So our revenues were off the charts. This was a big year. Every other year of its existence, Amtrak has posted a loss. And in the span of 30 days or 90 days, excuse me, with COVID, our ridership was dropped, and we're obviously not going to post a profit this year.
Oh, you were so close.
So close. There's, we're hoping to come through this in a couple of years, but we'll see.
Yeah. I think you will. I think people are going to be really interested in traveling really fast, really soon, once everything is a little bit more with vaccines and a little bit more normal again, quote unquote.
I agree.
So tell me, Kevin, what have you done to promote great customer service in your organization?
So that's kind of a loaded question. I'm new to Amtrak. And so, you're coming in from the outside, and I'm not a legacy Amtrak employee. Our the average tenure for an agent in our call center is probably about 15 years, which you don't normally find. But in terms of promoting customer, outstanding customer service, that's a twofold kind of approach for me. First is communicating internally what, people call the call center, and we've rebranded to a certain extent using center of excellence, which is a common term you would find, or customer experience center, so that people internally understand what it is that we do. We don't just take phone calls. It's different channels. We're serving internal customers as well. The office of the president. We're servicing our conductors and people out in the field, in addition to customers that are calling in and booking. So I think communication is key in order for people to understand and to really drive outstanding customer service throughout the organization is important, but people have to understand what it is that you do. And then really to drive the experience, I'm focused on, and it's a Branson philosophy, but I believe focusing on the employee experience. So, you need to make sure that your employees are happy. Other things kind of take care of themselves once you are tending to your employees. Their experience drives the customer experience, and you've really got to be focused on that. And that's how you really drive service forward. You can, tools and technology are awesome, but in terms of the one-to-one interaction, in terms of an agent, it's important to focus on the employee experience. The technology and the other stuff is, it depends on Gen X or millennials or whoever, that you happen to be talking to in terms of the technology that they want to use. So it's a combination of still focusing on employees and the service and the interactions, the technology, and really staying close to your customers and giving them the things that they want in terms of how they want to interact with you.
Yeah. You said something interesting when you first started answering this question. You said that some of your employees have been there, customer service employees, for 15 years, which is rare. The turnover is much faster and higher. So you're obviously doing a good job with what you just said you're doing as employee satisfaction. What makes it so much nicer to work at Amtrak in the customer service department? Why are people staying for 15 years? Is there something specifically that you guys
Yes.
do to make people excited about being at work?
Well, I can explain. I don't know if it's being excited at work, but the reason the tenure is so high, and we have had people that with 20, 30, 40 years, close to 40 years worth of tenure, we give out the service awards. The reason being is that we are a union shop. So all of our, out on the call center, and predominantly throughout the entire organization, they're agreement employees. And so there's obviously a lot of benefits to being a union employee. Their raises are automatic, and they have a lot of perks. And so people are working for their benefits and for the monetary gains that they get from the position. And so, yeah, we have people that, it's the only job they've ever had. And it's the only job that they want. That, the perks are significant for them.
That's great. So let's talk a little bit about having limited resources. Almost all organizations do either have limited resources when it comes to time or, resources, tech, that type of thing. How do you deal with that?
So I think that, they've started the journey over the years in terms of enhancing the self-service tools, so that things are more efficient. It takes less, of what, we would consider the typical agent in the seat taking the phone call. Again, I started to talk about this, depending on, if you're Gen X or a millennial or what generation you come from. People like to blame everything on the millennials. You got to have digital journey. And I find, like, for the millennials, they just want to interact with you in the way that's most convenient for them. And I'm obviously not a millennial, but I'm the same way. If I'm at work, I'd like to use chat because I can multitask. If I'm at home, I don't mind picking up the phone. If I'm really lazy, then I want email. It depends on but that is part of, also looking at your resources and how you fill in some gaps with automated tools, with AI, leveraging, a really good IVR, and providing, efficiency for some transactions that happen in bulk that don't require a lot of attention or a lot of work to get those done. So, we look at like I said, when I came to Amtrak, they had really started on the journey with the self-service tools. I look at the functional areas and how we are able to consolidate to get efficiency and better leverage resources, because in our shop, it's very siloed within the call center by design because of the union agreement. So for our different specialty desks, for example, it is very siloed. And so we look at that, to try to get efficiency back by combining some of those functions.
Yeah, that makes sense. So how do you measure success?
So, yeah, that's another loaded question, right? So, I mean, it's the typical KPIs. When we talk about contact centers, centers of excellence, people are looking at NPS or VOC. We're looking at handle time, transfer rates, first call resolution. So we look at all those typical things in terms of the success of the organization. For us also, because we book, we take reservations and we book travel, we also look at revenue. So we look at revenue, the agent's individual revenue, our, reservations per hour, and we book, normally we book millions of dollars of revenue every month. And so that is a big kind of a view in terms of success is revenue for us. But also, I think that the other part of success is really monitoring social media to see if your customers are happy. So looking at the data that you get from social media or from VOC and from NPS, looking at, verbatims. And so that data, getting your insights and then developing an action plan to fix things or, look at pain points for customers. And a lot of that, success is looking at the survey data down to the agent level to really look at agent behaviors and work to change them if you need to, or modify agent behaviors, really to drive the customer experience. So for me, I gauge a lot of our success when I ride the train, because I talk to customers. So I'm sitting next to somebody. I don't always have my Amtrak lanyard on. And I've had a couple opportunities to speak to people at length about changes we've made. And it's the same thing. We do a lot of surveys, typical, surveys and NPS for the call center, but we also do it, for onboard services. So, people that are riding the trains, were they happy with the accommodations and the linens and the towels and the food and, the whole experience, if it's long distance or if it's a commuter run. We're getting really more into the habit of getting that data almost real time. So, we're working on some of the strategy where we know that they've just gotten on the train and we may text them a survey. So we're getting more up-to-date information. So it's a whole compilation of, what I would call legacy KPIs, and then really getting the direct customer feedback to really gauge your overall success. Same thing, we look at complaints, are we driving complaint data down, complaint volume down? Are we doing root cause to fix the customer issues? And just being responsive to really, really address the customer needs.
Yeah. That's really interesting that you guys are doing quite a bit. I love that you can actually go on the train and talk to people, and you can have that real conversation, which for most of us, we send out monkey surveys and everything's online. There's no customer interaction when we get that feedback. So that's really valuable. That's really interesting that you can do that.
Yeah, I find it interesting. I mean, people hit me up on LinkedIn if they have an issue. And I'm happy to figure out what the problem is and get it fixed for them. Again, I've been on a train a couple of times where just talking to the person sitting next to me, and I've talked to this woman who had been riding the rails for 20 years, and we made some food changes, and she didn't like it, and it's really great to get that kind of feedback, because it really does give you an indication if you're doing a good job on service all around, because we have a lot of different components. It's not just, calling into the contact center. There's different things that customers are looking at.
Yeah. So Kevin, as a thought leader in customer service and customer care, tell me, what do you think is the future of artificial intelligence when it comes to customer service?
So I think that's different for everyone. I was really surprised because you think of Amtrak and a train, right? You think of that as like a legacy company, right? And and some things were a little behind the times, but we have deployed some really good AI. So, our IVR can book your reservation for you. And, if our agents have questions, our AI can answer questions for them and things like that. So we have a good partner and we have some robust AI in there. So, but beyond, and that was part of the self-service offering to get things to run automatically. I think AI provides really some dynamic problem solving. So obviously eliminates wait times, and AI knows the answer, right? For if you identify your top 20 drivers or maybe even top 50 drivers, those answers are defined and AI can handle that, no question about it, 100%. And, and then a lot of it is I think it's the conversational process. AI can go deep and understand what customers are asking for. And in some cases, they're able to respond quicker, better, faster, and correctly versus an agent. So, a lot of that is that AI learns and it doesn't forget. And it learns trends, it learns characteristics that can be used on future interactions, so it gets better. It's machine learning, a component there of AI, as it learns as it goes. And so I think for a lot of folks, it's really becoming comfortable with, AI is not a robot. AI in a lot of cases is seamless to a customer, and it can handle these repetitive interactions correctly, like 100% correct every time. Customer's happy and can leave the more complicated stuff for an agent, or it can transfer to an agent if you're using a bot to complete it. So I think the future of AI, I mean, I think it's only going to continue to get better. I think people need to learn about it and figure out how it works in their organization. They have to evaluate their customers too, because, I say this all the time, my kids don't want to talk to anybody. They don't want to pick up the phone, but my dad, who's, almost 80, is going to want to pick up the phone every time. So know your customers and, provide the channels and the things that they want, that they're going to want to interact with you on. And that, if you're using AI, that it's set up properly, that it doesn't feel strange if someone's going through the process.
Yeah, that's so important. And that natural language processing that we do at Inbenta, that's something that's just so different than when you have the robot mechanical sound. So I love that. And I like that you really are paying attention to your customer and what age group and what their preference is. Because if you just want to do one thing, but your millennials are going to be left out, or your seniors are going to be left out, that's not good, especially for Amtrak, which, I mean, you guys have probably every single
Yeah.
age group using it.
We do. And the other thing with AI, I caution people too, is that, if you're looking at potential technology, please make sure that it's AI and not branching. So there's a lot of technologies that people would call AI, and it's not, it's an if-then statement that's running down basically a decision tree. It's not learning. It's not, it's not true AI. And so you have to really evaluate your technology carefully, make sure it meets your needs, and make sure that it's true AI. I think that some people fall into those pitfalls because it looks good and it seems simple and explainable, but it's not really the technology that they need.
Yes. Oh, so true. So true. I love that you said that. All right. So, Kevin, my last question for you. What is the number one advice that you have for customer service departments?
So I started to talk about this at the beginning of our conversation, and it really is to focus on the employee experience. So, you know, employees in the call center, because, we, at least today, are still, still have agents taking phone calls, but they need the best training. They need the best tools, the best work environment, best recognition programs to drive the employee experience, to drive the customer experience, it is to drive the happy within the organization, right? You drive happy to your employees, and that comes through to their customers. And that also includes whoever's programming your IVR or who's implementing your technology, making sure that you're recognizing efforts. And we have done that since I've been there. We have relaunched some of the employee engagement programs, employee recognition programs. But I would say that for a customer service department, it is, driving the employee experience and providing leadership. I think one of the things you see, if you troll LinkedIn or you read some of the articles, especially in this age of COVID, are the people that really provide leadership. And so even in a customer service organization, I think for any department or any place that you work, leadership becomes really critical. So you have bosses and you have people that do things, but we need people to step up and be leaders. COVID has really shown that. I've had some experiences this year that, have been, I never thought I would have to deal with, and has been a focus within our building to make sure that we are using the right cleaning protocols and we have the right cleaning supplies, and that we are enforcing social distancing. And, they're the components of the work environment, but really, again, what I'm tying back to is be a leader, lead your teams, communicate clearly. And that's part of driving the employee experience, because today, part of my responsibility is to make sure everyone is healthy and safe. And so, may have not necessarily been a focus in the past, but it certainly is a focus today.
Yeah, that's great. I really do like that employee experience is so important, because that does directly translate to the customer experience if the employee is happy or not.
It does. It really does. It's key. And I just find that if you provide your employee with everything they need to do a great job and you're recognizing them, then kind of everything else takes care of itself. They are happy to deliver an outstanding experience for your customers. And, they will always go the extra mile above and beyond because they're not only, they're proud of the job that they're doing, but they're proud of the organization that they work for. They're proud of the leadership that they're under. And so if you provide all of that to them, really, you'll have a loyal employee who's doing a great job every time.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you, Kevin, so much for being here. I really appreciate your time.
Yep, no problem. Enjoyed it.
All right, have a good one.
Yep, thanks.
Thanks so much for tuning in. This podcast was brought to you by Inbenta. Inbenta Symbolic AI implements natural language processing that requires no training data with Inbenta's extensive lexicon and patented algorithms. Check out this robust customer interaction platform for your AI needs, from chatbots to search to knowledge centers and messenger platforms. Just go to our website to request a demo at inbenta.com. That's INBENTA.com. And if you liked what you heard today, please be sure to subscribe to this podcast and leave us a review. Thank you.